there, welcome back to the VMO YouTube channel. This is Jansen. Today I'm going to be taking a look at pulley rigs, and in particular pulley beads, pulley connections, the part of the pulley rig at the very top which gives it that seesaw pulley effect. There's loads of different products available now to create this rig. Gone are the days where you just had to use a swivel. You can of course still use a swivel, but there are alternatives. Let's take a look at some of those now. So for probably the last 30 years or more, the pulley rig has become incredibly popular for fishing over rough ground. The whole concept of a hooked fish, pulling the lead clear of any snags, getting it up in the water, away from the bottom, it's fantastic. It works very, very well. You don't have to just use this rig over rough ground. You can obviously use it over clean ground as well. There's no reason at all why you shouldn't. Back in the day, we used to use a swivel, and obviously you still can. Swivels still work. It's a case of finding the right swivel. We'll get onto that in a bit. But also you can now get these specialist items such as the Gemini Premium Pulley Swivel, the Breakaway proper pulley clip, the Trident Aero pulley, and of course the Tronix Pro pulley bead. So there's lots of different variations now, and the good thing about some of these is you can actually use them for other things, and we'll also get onto that in a short while. So let's take a closer look at some of these and see how they're going to perform when they're actually on a rig. So just before we get into having a closer look at some of these pulley beads, I'm just going to knock up a really quick pulley rig. So imp bait clip at the bottom of the rig, like that. I'm just going to make a short rig because, to be quite honest, all we're interested in is the top of the rig. Okay, so bead, swivel, bead, where's the hole? There it is. Trace swivel. So we've got our really quick pulley rig there, and this rig is literally just to illustrate some points. So, and don't be overly concerned about the type of line that I've used here or the bait clip or anything like that, because all we're going to be focusing on today is the top of this pulley rig and why we might choose an alternative to that swivel. Okay, so first thing to take into consideration when you're casting with a pulley rig, there's a lot of pressure on this main swivel. Okay, you've got this kind of effect going on, whereas when you've got a knot, the knot is not going to allow the line to slip or pull or, you know, really cheese wire with that swivel. When it's free running, when your rig is clipped down and it's going to look something like that, there's a lot of pressure on that swivel. So traditionally, ways to combat this, you'd use a heavier rig body. This is just something I've grabbed just to illustrate the point. It's about £70, but you'd want to go a lot heavier than this. So my pulley rigs, I usually go for about £100. Depending on what I'm fishing for, I will go up to about 150. So that's your first consideration, getting this line nice and thick, so there's very little chance of this swivel cheese wiring through. And it has happened, I've seen it happen in the past, where people have used the wrong type of swivel or the wrong type of rig body and it causes a crack off. So the second thing we can do is take a look at our swivel. Now the diameter of the wire used on the swivel should be greater, ideally, than that of the rig body. There's a bit of a balancing act here, but if you imagine you've got a thicker wire, a heavier diameter wire in the swivel, there's less chance of it pulling through. So with that in mind, it's quite easy to see how we've arrived at the point where you can now buy specific pulley beads and pulley swivels, which are obviously stepped up around the part that makes contact with the line. So now we've sort of gone through that, let's take a look at those components. So first up, we've got the Gemini Premium Pulley Swivel. So straight away you can see this has got a real thick point of contact with that rig body. So when we're clipping the rig down, this is obviously attached to your shock leader, and your clip down rig is going to sit like this. So you can see that there's a big surface area making contact with the rig body. You could probably use lighter rig bodies than you would usually use. You could probably, dare I say it, use an 80-pound rig body with this clip without any problem at all. Now what I like about these, and hopefully we can pick it up on camera, look how smooth and tapered this is here. There's no sharp edge at all making contact with the rig body. So that's going to be free running, and there's no danger whatsoever of that pulling through and causing a nasty crack off. I've got to say I quite like this one, although I do still use swivels for my pulley rigs. If I was going to use an alternative, it would probably be this one. So second on the list, we've got this Trident Aero pulley. Now this is quite a unique design, because if you can see that, the line actually runs through this in a figure of 8 fashion. So it's not just reliant on sliding on the line. The line is actually wrapped around this radiused block in the middle. And like I say, quite a unique design. It certainly gives it some protection. There's, going to be no damage to this line whatsoever. The surface area that the rig body is making contact with is huge. So you've got no problems at all there with your line getting damaged. What's interesting with this one as well is when the line's tight, this clip is actually under some tension. And if I slacken the line off, not so much. So yeah, I mean, this is a nice aerodynamic one as well, I've got to say. Compared to the Gemini, it's probably a little bit slimmer. Is it potentially a little more fiddly though? Possibly, though, I don't know. I think you'd soon get used to rigging these up. Very smart design though. You can see that the whole thinking behind this one is aerodynamics. The shape of it when you're casting, yeah, it's going to certainly add to the aerodynamics of any rig. Nice, quite impressed with that, gotta say. So the Breakaway proper pulley. Now you do actually have to assemble these. Of all of the clips that we've got here today, this is the only one that you've got to piece together before you can use it. So it doesn't look too difficult. 2 components, a clip, and this little black triangular piece which is going to make contact with your rig body. So all we're going to do is, if I show you that, a little hole there, I'm going to pop him on like that, and that's our clip. Let's get it on the rig and see how it looks. So there we go, we've got our Breakaway proper pulley clip on the rig body, and again, nice big surface area to make contact with the line. No danger of that seesawing through and cheese wiring it off anyway. Look at that, nice big gap. Whether or not these style of clips that create this wider gap add anything to the rig in terms of aerodynamics, I'd like to think that when the rig is clipped down, that these 2 lines are, pulled together. Whether there's any greater resistance as it's flying through the air because those lines are splayed out, who knows? I'm no scientist, but the actual shape of the thing, you would think it lends itself well to aerodynamics. So yeah, you can see through there, big surface area for the line to run through, and very smooth as well. Now the only thing that may be of some concern is perhaps the contact area onto the stainless just here. But I do know a lot of anglers who use these, they swear by them, and I've not heard of any quality control issues, that's for sure. Breakaway Tackle, fantastic company, been around a long time, and they make their tackle properly, they really do. So Yeah, looks good to me. Again, if I was going to use something other than a swivel on a pulley rig, this might be something to go for. So our fourth and final pulley bead to take a look at here. Remember, this isn't a review as such, this is taking a look at what's available and seeing how it might perform in the field. This is the Tronix Pro pulley bead. So these are really, really popular. We sell a lot of them. And again, if I turn that swivel round, you can see that it creates this wider gap. And in theory, we're cushioning the line there. I'm not so sure if it's actually going to work like that. So just out of pure curiosity, I've got my knot puller here. And I'm just going to pop that in there, give this a good pull and see what it does to the rig body. So perhaps we've simulated some of the pressure of a cast there. And you can see it has made these two indentations. So not the smoothest running device to make your pulley rig out of. I would still personally use a swivel over something like this. Although saying that, these are very cheap. They're very economical if you're fishing over rough ground. If you're not having to cast too far, I'd happily use that. If I was lobbing 40 or 50 yards onto a rough mark, and I didn't want to be throwing away expensive rig components, this would be the kind of thing I would go for. But before I do give these Tronix Pro pulley beads too much of a hard time, remember what I said right at the start of this, the rig body itself should be at least £100. If that was £100, it wouldn't have anywhere near damaged as much as it has. Heavier rig bodies really are the way to go with your pulley rigs, regardless of what you're using. So just as a final note, we all like a little extra. How about using one of these pulley rig components as a running ledger? So here I've got the Gemini Premium Pulley, and you can see it makes a really nice little mini running ledger if you're going to be fishing at close range or up tiding from the boat or even down tiding from the boat. You'd attach your trace onto there, hooks on the other end, and you're good to go. And here's an extra little tip as well. If you're using this rig from the shore and you want to clip it down, all you need to do is add a Gemini splashdown solo bait clip. Your trace line would come back up the rig body, over the clip and back down onto the bait clip. So your clip's down. So just because it is a pulley clip or a pulley bead, it doesn't mean you have to use it on a pulley rig. There are alternatives, and it's always good to look at these kind of components and think what else they could actually be used for as well as their intended use. So that was a tackle talk on pulley rig beads and connections. Of course you can still use a swivel at the top of a pulley rig, there's no reason not to. Just remember what I said about using the correct diameter wire on the swivel and making sure the rig body is nice and thick. Usually about £100, but even up as much as 150. It's all about the safety aspect. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and I'll catch you again.